can go along. So Charlotte, and then Grace, and then Zool, okay?
Okay. So yeah, I'm Charlotte. I'm also a second year BC MPH student, and I'm really interested in pediatric and perinatal epidemiology.
Okay.
I'm Zool. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm Grace. I'm a second year global health student in the maternal child health certificate.
Okay.
I'm Zool. I'm a Center Health Policy Fellow at Morehouse.
Okay, great, perfect. All right. Well, so now we can. Is there any big picture questions or questions people would like to ask of me before we kind of dig into? I'm sure lots of people just want to get down to the nitty gritty of like what we're going to do, what didn't make sense. So, but is anything else that you'd like to ask or?
Well, I guess it's not a question, more of a comment. So I guess I missed out on some of the communication earlier, and I was just reading through the documents and the conversations that happened before, I guess in the last couple of weeks. So I guess I'm just catching up, I'd be listening to the conversation today to sort of keep up to speed.
Okay, cool. All right, so people that met last week and kind of had some time to, so my understanding is last Wednesday y'all met as part of GaLend and kind of started kicking the ball around, reading some of this stuff and talking through as a group, is that correct?
We got the material after our last meeting, so Wednesday we didn't have a chance to go through anything.
We discussed a few things, but then once we got the materials, it didn't really relate to it. But I think we discussed a little bit of the general idea of what we thought we were going to do.
Okay. So there are kind of two big buckets of the direction that we're heading, one of which is a lit review for the semester that'll kind of help up prime the disparities conversation, difference in disparities conversation for the Autism Conference Expo of Georgia. And so that is largely set up. Each of you has been assigned 5 manuscripts on a targeted area so that you can get a kind of a focused look into one small subset of the disparities, differences conversation going on right now. And it will also be helpful to us as we start to wrap our minds around how to organize things for the ACE conference. I went ahead and created a conceptual bucketing and kind of organization around how the articles seem to be laying out according to some of the frameworks I work with. But the good news is that you don't have to go searching for anything. Like you've got 5 papers and relatively minimal time and search, so you should be able to dig in deep to those 5 papers and start to code, if you want, abstract some information from it and pull together a kind of a 2 to 3 page paper that we will then use as the basis to start working on a group 5 to 10 page manuscript. I don't know if y'all have ever had this. Yeah.
So so you said coding, and I guess I read somewhere on the documents that were attached. Can you explain a little more about that and the expectations about that? And you also mentioned a paper. So so is the paper due in November, or so what's the time?
That's a good question. So I had originally I had sent this out to be part of the class the first or the second week of GaLend, but then Mark and Dan wanted to wait until last week to give it to provide it. And so that October 16th date, it's a soft date. We can move it back to November, and then we will work on a paper together, largely. I'm making this up as I go along, just to be honest with you. So like in terms of if you want a framework with a specific, like, hey, I did a good job, or hey, I did a bad job, a lot of it is going to, so like for me to go back and say, hey, Mark, like these guys did their work, and like, hey, okay, they're great people. I like them. It will basically be if you mostly correctly abstracted information from the article, kind of like out of the abstracting tools that I sent you, and table that information, write a decent 2 to 3 page paper, and put in some degree of effort as we start to try to pull that information together into kind of a broader 5 to 10 page manuscript. I'll be doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that final part. And we'll be sending it out for comments, edits, does it make sense, things along those lines. If you finish your 2 to 3 page kind of manuscript on your own, on your 5 papers, I feel like that has kind of been enough for that part of the project for the course. I would love it if you like kicked the ball around and kind of helped out with the paper beyond that. And, you know, as we start to make it take shape and think through it. But honestly, you don't have to, right? Because the other piece of your assignment for the semester is also looking up the 20, kind of going through the 20 counties that you've been assigned and pulling information from those. So I don't know if you saw that paper, but that part, but your eyes got real big. So I'm assuming that might not have been the case.
Yeah, I saw this, but I did not, you know, go through it in
Okay.
a lot of detail. But,
And we can go through, for
Okay.
both, we can kind of go through like a county or something tonight if you'd like, is just kind of like
Sure.
what I'm thinking about in terms of doing this. So it's a bit time intensive and it's dull, that part is. But it will be ultimately really helpful for us to try to create a really comprehensive resource map of autism, kind of autism services in the state of Georgia. So we've kind of done, has anybody ever done a quote unquote environmental scan?
No.
No, okay. So it's a term I have heard around for years now, and it's essentially, it's kind of a fancy word for, you know, I did like some searches online and looked for stuff related to a topic, and I can't really tell you what I did. It's like what it is. All right, so this is different because you're going to be able to go back and say, all right, I went to each county, did a Scholar Google search with some set parameters, and this is what I did, and this is how we did it across all the people participating in this. And here's my record of my work. And so that's basically all there is to it. And it's not all that complicated, but like I said, it's boring, immensely helpful, and a bit time consuming. So I would just do a few a week, kind of work it into your schedule and kind of move forward from there.
Dr. Bartlett.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was curious when I was reading over it, is there hard data that you're looking for us to input, or is it just hyperlinked to new resources that you were looking to use outside of the ones you already had?
So for right now, so for Emory folks, the Core Georgia Lend folks will be with us through the spring, and what we'll do ultimately is we will take that. So next semester, us four will take that data, go through that file, and split it up and look to see if we can identify more hard data that's useful in it, right? So for right now, it's hyperlinks. I think this is useful. I think it's not. And then we will vet it further in the spring to kind of distill it down to see if there's much. I think you might, hopefully you noticed in it too, there is a, where is it? General instructions. Here, I'll share my screen really quick and hopefully this doesn't just tank them. There we go. So I will scroll down here a bit. So we've kind of, actually, before we jump into that piece, does anybody have questions about the 5 articles and the 2 to 3 page summary?
I actually have a question about the coding part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You sent us a sample. Did you want us to base the coding based on the sample, but just do one for each of the articles that you assigned?
That's right. Yeah. So
We'll check.
Use that as a guide for what you're looking for to abstract from your study. And so, yeah, that's exactly right. Okay. And then table it in the end. We'll create, so we've got what, 8 people total, I think. So we'll have about 40 articles tabled out with just high level data at the end. That'll kind of become the core of a narrative that we'll start playing with. And so, yeah, so I do a lot of systematic reviews and meta-analyses. And so I found personally that abstracting data from articles really helps you think through what the article is really telling you anyways, and start to think through things like sample size, methods, how things are measured in a way that really helps you, at least really helps me to see more clearly how different studies are and which ones are alike and how they're alike. And you start to see patterns. One of the things we can do once we have all of them together is we can start to look for patterns within our table data in a larger file. Has anybody ever done a systematic review or meta-analysis?
Mm-hmm. A little bit.
Little bit. Yeah. So this is kind of like an informal bit by bit using systematic review methodology to pull relevant information. And so we'll each take a stab at different parts of this. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And then for like probably me to make sure I'm doing it correctly, would you mind if I reached out to one of your graduate assistants to have her just check one first before I do all 5 of them? Like,
you can reach out to me directly. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. So I do not teach. And so I'm pretty excited about this. I used to teach, I was a special ed teacher for a number of years. So, but I have not taught in a classroom setting for about 5 years now. So I try to make myself pretty available as a mentor. So I reach out. I would be tickled because nobody ever takes me up on it. So.
All right, done.
What was that?
We have Ellie in the room with us.
Thanks, Ellie. Hey, Ellie.
He's auditing our meeting.
He said we need to make you work for it.
Thanks, Ellie. That's helpful. All right. Any other questions about the kind of 5 manuscript 2 to 3 page paper?
And please excuse me for my questions. When you guys talk about coding, my mind immediately goes to ICD coding because that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years.
Yeah, and I do the stats for the center. So whenever I hear coding, I think R coding. So no, it probably a better term would be abstracting.
Okay.
So we're abstracting information from the methods.
Okay.
Of manuscripts. So. And yeah, so there's a very short coding form. Sure. I think most of it is present. I mean, literally you can go through and just put an X, whatever you want in Word, you want to just put an X in there. If it's present or not present, you don't even have to put a 0 for not present. If you put an X, I know it's present. And when you table it out, table, what was there and what wasn't. And then there's some numeric data in terms of the gender, intellectual disability, ages, things like that. Plus some notes. And so at the bottom, where it says like summary of main findings, kind of big picture, you don't have to get into all the statistical significance or effect sizes or anything along those lines, just big picture, say like, most white kids are found with, on the average age of autism identification for white kids is like 4.5 years old, whereas the average identification of Black or Hispanic kids is 6 years old, right? Big picture finding from the study, and there you may have a few of them in there, but it doesn't have to be wildly detailed. It can be just the main, think like Hemingway, right? Short, sweet, brief. So, and I could have left brief off of that. That's not very Hemingway-like. So, good question. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Cleared a lot up. Thank you.
Oh, one thing I should note while we were talking about that. In your, so each of you have 5 manuscripts you're supposed to be abstracting, but there's a solid number of articles touching on the big picture, general context, and seminal articles that you should use as reference and probably have referenced in like a big picture introduction. So, your first paragraph or 2 kind of touching on the general issue of differences and disparities in autism, how are kids found, what's the route of identification, and you can follow that model described however you want, and include, at least some of these, especially the ones that are relevant to the articles you're abstracting, even if you don't have these particular articles in your list. You don't have to use every one, but building a narrative from some of these core will also have everybody working from a same set of core articles as you consider these your particular area. And we'll should make for some interesting discussion as you dig in and start to think about this a little bit more. And plus in the notes section, my guess is, so if I had to like take a guess, a quarter, so 2 of you will be like, oh, I really don't want to do this. And you get into it and you're like, I really didn't want to, I was right. This was one of the worst things I've ever done. And 2 to 4 people will be like, like it was fine. It was fine. And a couple of you will really get into it. And, might, change what you do, or like change what you're thinking about studying. And, if you want to take more notes, or if something really stands out and you want to like kind of underscore it, or you think, gosh, this is really interesting, maybe we could add it to the coding form because it really stands out as important to me. Feel free to take that on. You won't be, again, you won't be graded on it or anything like that, but you are welcome to adapt and add to if you want. Any other questions on the autism disparities narrative?
Just a quick big picture question. So, is the overall idea to publish or to submit for publication? Because of course we are putting all of this work into it. So, and maybe I missed that. So please forgive me for that. But is the idea here to submit it for publication, or?
I would say that there is a possibility that this could roll into a publication eventually. Okay. So the most immediate function of it will be to help inform the Autism Conference and Expo for Georgia in this next spring. And so one day of that is going to be on disparities. And so we're going to create probably like distill all this into a 1-page really thoroughly vetted narrative about why this is important, some of the work that's going on in Georgia, and kind of the big picture buckets to consider differences and disparities. So anything at the conference in terms of like a poster or a presentation would have your name on it. And then the other piece is it is possible that this could turn into like a broader systematic review or just a review paper. And if you as you move forward on that bigger piece, as we start to merge all these the brief 2 to 3 page manuscripts together, we can have a conversation. It would be an unfolding conversation balanced with my other projects in terms of if I would have time to pull off a manuscript from it. But if I could, I would welcome co-authors and I would welcome co-authors, and it would be an opportunity for you to get a publication. That's a long answer, but
that helps.
Yeah. So the answer is maybe. So aspirationally, yes. Will the balance of time for the year work out that way? I can't say for a fact, but systematic reviews are monstrous beasts. So good question. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So do feel free to reach out with any questions. You've all got my phone number and my email, and I will typically get back to you within 24 hours unless I completely miss the email, which does happen on occasion. All right. So the environmental scan. So let's take a few minutes to kind of just big picture go through what this is going to look like, because it's not fun, but I don't want to make it sound horrible either. I wouldn't say it's horrible. And if at the end of a long day, it can be a little therapeutic to do something that's completely mindless. This is not what I put together. That's really all right. So this is what I sent you guys, right? Let me look. Do I have it hidden? I got it hidden. That's what the problem is. There we go. All right. So essentially, the way this will work, and we'll go ahead and lucky you. Extra. How do you spell it? How do you pronounce your name? It's Extrara, right? Extrara?
Extrier.
Extriera. All right. But do you pronounce the last A?
Say that one more time.
Do you pronounce the last A? Is it Extrier or Extriera?
It's just Extrier.
Extrier. Extrier. All right. Okay. That's a cool name. All right. So basically, we've got Appling County here. We've got Extrier Gates. So we will go to, you get to see my messy email. Google, if you've ever heard of it, I don't know. And basically, line by line, we'll take this. So we're going to do county plus autism. So literally just Apple, man, is it Appleton? Appling. Appling, autism, and we will, so we've got screening or MChat. So we'll do one. Why is it disappearing? And we may want to do Appling County, Georgia. And so your first hit is, so you can see we're not getting a ton of results. There's only 10 results here. Especially a lot of the rural counties, you're going to enter some of these and you're going to get nothing, like just nothing. And so we would take a look at this and so no autism therapist in Appling County. That's easy enough. Let's see here. That looks like that. Yeah, sorry. There's that Southern Counseling Services. We would probably take that, dump it in. And we may want to list it 1. Give it some space here. Go on to the next one. Nuts. I'm not going to impress y'all with my wonderful Excel skills or my capacity to interface with a computer. All right. I'm not sure what to do. Does anybody know what to do here?
You can hit enter.
What's that?
Just hit enter.
I did hit enter, and it's taking me to the next line, which is not what I want. So I may need to do something like this where that's going to take forever.
What are you trying to do?
I'm just trying to continue. I'll just put a little note here and go to the next.
Are you trying to put other services in the same box?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think you just space it out.
Space it out.
You have to what?
Just space it out.
Oh, just space it out.
Yeah, and then you can either make the row height different or the width.
Someone was just talking, maybe they.
Well, this might not work in Excel then. I'm not sure. So, crap.
Have you tried Shift Enter? Shift
You
Enter.
can try Shift Enter really quick. It does that. Shift.
I would try like all of those, like Shift Enter, Control Enter. Are you on a Mac?
No, I don't believe in Macs.
On a Mac, you can just Shift Enter. So.
Oh, now I believe in Macs. That's awesome. All right. Well,
Do you want to remove the hyperlink and then click enter, because maybe that's what it's keeping it from?
maybe. All right.
I wonder if you put it in Word first and then copy it and paste it.
So I'm going to make a few different cells here, which is not going to be pretty.
If you wrap it,
That's true too.
so
But it's,
maybe if you hit wrap text, it'll do it automatically, I believe.
if you hit what, wrap text?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could try that.
So you have to put the
Yeah.
hyperlink back in there and then hit wrap text. And
Yeah. All right, and then we can wrap text in. I mean, that kind of bumps it up when like when you do that, right? We may need to do, so one of the things is that we might need to do a solution along these lines where you have, obviously we may need to put this into, so right now it's in like wide format. We need to put it into a long format where you've got like multiple entries per county. So that might work out better. So I can work on making this more user-friendly along those lines. But essentially, here, let's do this. I'm gonna just call this entry. And then we would have like multiple screening. So these would all be like screening entries. And then we would put that one for that one.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And you guys don't need, I will, when we're done, I can pull together like a template so that you don't have to, all right. And so that you don't have to go through the trouble of doing it yourself, and that way you can focus just on the task and not to create your own instrument. So here's an example of one, and I've got a note. So I went to the next link, family support service page, well, yeah, so for one thing, this is Appling County School District, anything related to county school districts, and there's a list of these kind of sites that, let's see if we can find it. Right here, there's a list in your paper. Anything that mentions Georgia Department of Education, Georgia Department of Public Health, Babies Can't Wait, Division of Early Care and Learning, Bright from the Start, Georgia Chapter of American Pediatrics, all those kind of places, we got those. Every county in the United States probably has some sort of link to, you know, obviously the DOE, obviously Department of Public Health. Babies Can't Wait. So those kind of things that are institutional and everywhere, like once you see that, just get out of that page. You don't need to spend any more time there. We're looking for unique things per county. And so, you know, this page, Appling County School District, you probably don't even need to look at it, right? You can look at the HTML here, or the HTTP here, and like, it's like, yeah, it's Georgia DOE. You can look at this, it's Georgia Department of Public Health, right? DPH. We know the DPH exists. Georgia Medicaid, we know, you know, again, these big picture institutional things. This Georgia Public Broadcasting. So this, I would look at this as an example, and it's probably going to be nothing. So GPB, let's just really quick look at for Appling. Look for the county you're looking in. It's not here, so it must, Appling County might be mentioned. I'm not really sure why it came up with Appling County, but so this, you would, I mean, it's obviously a news story about someone with a kid with autism that went into a rage. You know, it's all of this stuff for this particular county, you would skip. Let's see here, Georgia Maternal Child Health Coordinator Locator. So this is DPH. So for screening, that we would back, so we did Appling County plus autism plus screening. We would also then go back and do Appling County plus autism plus MCHAT, Appling County plus ages and states plus autism. So like a single search per one of those. So you can see how quickly, so we've got, I think, 12 buckets, each with anywhere from 1 to 10 additional search terms with autism to try to kind of get a comprehensive breadth of view, that breadth of hits. Over time, that's going to be, you can see why you would only want to like hit 2 or 3 of those up a week as part of your workload. Yeah, Azul.
So how many links do we need to copy and paste for each of those, you know, search terms? So for example, medical services, dental, family. So how many links do we need?
So you don't necessarily, so like this one for this entire county, chances are if we went through this, when we go ahead and do the ages to stages really quick and see. I'll put it in there. So Ages and Stages is a really popular autism screener. Georgia, autism screener. I don't know, put Ages and Stages. And then you may want to put questionnaire. So we get 38 results. So the other thing is only get hit the first 20. Once you get to 20 hits, stop. Like we're not going to search through 38. Some of these, especially the closer you get to DeKalb County, you'll be looking at thousands of hits, and we don't have time for that. Like 20 sites potentially. So this is coming up, the most Ages Stages. So it's not including appling. Georgia score. Allegation suspicion of abuse. This is interesting. So Division of Family and Children's Services, this is a state agency. We know they exist. We don't need it. This is probably the georgia.gov site. I could have told before looking in it. Yeah, this is public health. Prevent child abuse. So Prevent Child Abuse, I think, is on our list. They're actually one of our community partners. They're not on our list, but we could put them on our list. What is this? District Health. So this is, again, a lot of it's going to be Department of Public Health stuff. Or random stuff like this. So I mean, this is essentially this is kind of a more structured way of doing what we've historically done for this, or what was done about 5 years ago. Just we didn't do county by county. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess what I was trying to understand was, is there like a cutoff in terms of the number of links we need, like for each of those buckets?
No. I mean, the thing is it's not like if you get 20 links, like you win, and if you only got 5, I mean, this is the kind of project where it will be super helpful, and of what we find, or the few things that we actually find, because I did this not as structured as this about 5 years ago for this project, just searching around, and every so often you'll come across something where we found a county where the police station in the county was doing special autism safety training for families of kids with autism. There was only 1 or 2 of those, but it went on our list, and it was they were a good group to know about. I think they were up in Gwinnett or something. So but you're talking about. I mean, I spent weeks of my time doing that, and it's not fun, but it's helpful, and it's helpful at building in the network, because we reach out to these people, try to get them to come to the autism conference, get them LinkedIn, and then also are able to promote some of the good things that they're doing in the community, and connect families to services that are closer to them, and in interested partners that are closer to them, particularly for some of these rural areas where there's really not much, and you may have like a fire station or a hospital that does things on occasion, but not often enough for the community to be saturated with it and to really know about it. And so when we talk about, especially in this bigger picture of like health disparities, rural urban health disparities. A big part of that is just, one, a lack of resources, but even if there are resources, a county over, people may not be aware of them. And so we try to use this information to kind of help people become more aware of the services that are happening nearer to them. So, so that folks way down next to the Florida-Georgia line don't feel like they have to drive up to DeKalb for everything. So.
Dr. Barger, is there any way you could share with us what you did 5 years ago so we could see it?
Yeah, it's on. What ended up happening, the final product is on the website, and it's pretty processed. So we can find it really quick. There might be a link to it in, well. Okay, here we go. Always have, I think this is no, I always have the hardest time finding this. Autism Plan in Oh, here it is. So this went into a document. So it got all processed up to a document, and partly because the environmental scan basically showed, and it probably still will show this, as we're likely to find out, that most everything's in Atlanta. Like services are Atlanta, Athens, a few things in Augusta, and then the greater Atlanta area. And so that was not, I can't remember all the decisions, not going into the fine details at the time, but essentially, big picture, the environmental scan went into informing our funders as to what's available in Georgia around each of these major areas. And who are community partners doing things. And so you've got these partners, so Children First, Hugh Spalding Hospital, Marcus Autism Center, and then a key related to, and this is under the early identification screening tool, in-person screening, telephone screening, web-based tool. And those are kind of based on things that we saw come out of our environmental scan in terms of, screening is kind of a big bucket thing. Almost everyone in the autism field does screening at some point. And so the services tend to be very high level, and you've got all these different tools related to informational resources and awareness projects and stuff. But again, kind of getting into, like, we all know, all these people are on our list of, like, ignore them if you get to web pages that they're doing stuff, because we know them. Referral diagnosis, the other big one, and then lists of partners who do, like local school districts, and then we had private providers, and I think aspirationally we wanted to pull together a private provider list, but at the time the private provider list was basically Atlanta. So like that was not, that won't be useful to people outside in more rural areas. And we know that some of that has grown in the meantime. So when you get to your referral diagnosis piece, you might find, you're likely to find that a fair amount of activity in referral and diagnosis. Medical, behavioral health, dental services, almost nothing here, and all of it, anything that was found was in Atlanta. But that's one of the areas that we'll be looking for, family supports. And then a key with like, these people do training, workshops, informational resources, toolkits. And there's a bunch more, right? So there's one, there's an abstracted legend for each of the big buckets on the Autism Plan of Georgia. So aspirationally, if we've seen some degree of growth since this time, it would be one of the things that I would like to do if we find, for example, let's say more counties are doing screening beyond just Department of Public Health. I could then take that data and create a kind of a county level map of change in screening data, or the number of counties that offering screening and referral service or private consultation around autism identification, and potentially hyperlink that to a service provider or something. But we won't know that until we have those kind of structured searches in place, and to know if that's even something we could aim for. Does that help? I think, Emily, was that your question?
Yes, I just wanted to look and see what had been 5 years ago. So I wrote the website down, so I'll just go by that and see.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, yeah. So there's a lot there, but at a minimum, we'll be revamping this and adding new partners to current activities in Georgia and what they do, right? So at a minimum, your data will be going into this, and if you find going on, it'll be revamping this, and then there may be areas that have just kind of taken off related to certain areas, and we could potentially start looking at creating a broader resource map, or a county level map of resources, or a state and county map of needs met and needs still to be filled in Georgia for these different buckets.
Great. Sounds good. I'm sure I'll be the one that has to email questions. So
what's that? Oh, you're going to be the one.
I'm sure I'm the one that'll email you stuff.
All right, that works. Any other questions about the what are we talking about? We're talking about the environmental scan.
You know, I might have a few questions as I get into it, but you said it's okay to email you, right?
Feel free to email me,
okay.
And then also, if you would like, we can, depending your level of how much you need or want, like face-to-face communication, we set up a Zoom meeting and kind of talk back and forth and share screen and whatnot. So I try to be pretty available for stuff. Any other questions?
I have a question. Just for like the bigger picture of this course, I know that we're supposed to do like a poster presentation. So the content for our poster presentation will be like from like the culminating of all of our literature reviews, or I just want to know what that's going to look like.
Yeah, for this class. So who asked the question?
Kyla, sorry, I didn't.
Okay, yeah. So for Emory and Len folks this semester, the culmination will be, you know, a poster presentation and in a manuscript on the lit review. All right. For the Lend trainees, we will be taking all this data that we're pulling together and use it to inform the whole year project. So the Autism Plan Georgia conference will also probably have a poster related to this more participatory action research end of things, which is looking at the resource mapping in Georgia.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Aren't we have to go? Our class is starting to get together. So
Yeah, I got you. That works. Feel free to reach out. I will try to get that a kind of an adapted file to you guys at least by tomorrow morning. Does that work?